One of life's simple joys is sinking your teeth into a well-made tasty sub sandwich. In today's video, I'm going to share my top 5 tips for making a delicious Italian-inspired sub. Every sub has the bread, the condiments and the fillings. For my sub sandwich, I've got a French baguette to use today, but you can use different types of bread for variety. You don't have to cut off the end pieces, but I find it allows it to open better and it looks nicer when they're plated. Next, I'm going to slice it along one side and open it up. Sometimes this can take a bit of bending to keep it open and make it easier to fill. Having the right condiments can take your sandwich to a whole new level. Using things like vinaigrettes or adding flavours to plain mayo like lemon and dill or chipotle can elevate your sandwich all on its own. Today I'm going to make a basic Italian style vinaigrette to complement the flavours in my sub. I've got some fresh garlic to finely grate, then some dried oregano. Fresh oregano would be better, but this is all I have today. Then I've got some chopped parsley, a grind of black pepper and a sprinkle of salt. Then we'll add some olive oil and white wine vinegar. Remember, the ratio for a vinaigrette is 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. Now that it's all come together, I'm going to put it into a squeezy bottle ready to use. So here comes my first tip. Make sure you dress your bread. I'm drizzling a little of our Italian vinaigrette onto the bread to give it flavour and moisture. This is where you can add your chosen condiments and spread them on, or use a piping bag if you prefer. Be generous here and put it all over. There's nothing worse than dry bread. To make a tasty sandwich, you have to start with tasty ingredients. Don't just slap in any old thing and call it a day. Think about what flavour combinations you want to add. Mine is Italian inspired, so I've got some ham, salami and mortadella, or luncheon as it's known here in New Zealand. Here we've got our lettuce leaves in a variety of colours, and over here we've got our tomatoes, a red onion, Kalamata olives and some cheese. Before we get into the second tip, have you heard about my newsletter? It's full of extra cooking tips, ideas and inspiration. You can sign up at easypeasy.co. There's a link in the description below. The second tip is to soak your raw onions. Do you sometimes find adding raw onion to food is very zingy? Well, the best way to tone down that zinginess is to soak them in a little warm water, or even just pop them in a sieve and run some water over them. It only takes a few minutes and it really makes them so much nicer to eat. I'm getting these soaking now, so they'll be ready to put on my sandwich soon. My third tip for making a perfect sub is to layer it up intentionally. Put some thought into your assembly so that you can experience the flavour and texture of every ingredient. Meat and cheese are meant to complement each other, so layer them together. I've cut my cheese a little smaller so that it fits onto the bread nicely. Next up, I'm going to add the meat. Using thinner slices of meat complements your sandwich composition and means you can use more than one kind of meat. You really don't want chunky pieces of meat. You know, the kind where you take one bite and all the filling comes out, leaving you with an empty bun? I'm carefully layering these up, making sure they're not overlapping onto the top side of the bread. I personally think it looks odd when you cut through the sandwich and you can see the filling folding around. So to avoid this happening, don't be afraid to cut the meat to fit. Notice how I've deliberately put the salami in between the lighter ham and mortadella. This creates a bit of colour contrast, and you can see the different types of meats in the finished sub. You can make subs with so many different ingredients. Think about your flavour pairings. Sweet, hot and spicy make a great combination. A little sweetness can switch things up, especially when paired with contrasting salty flavours. Have you ever added strawberries and balsamic vinegar to your salad sub? Try some experimenting next time you make a sub, and maybe you'll find some new favourite combinations. Adding vegetables to a sub is also an essential part. They can help your sandwich taste fresher, lighter, and so much more sophisticated. Remember to put your tomato in the middle of the sub. It's one way to stop it making the bread go soggy. Next, I'm going to add the lettuce, which brings me to tip number 4. Dress your lettuce leaves. I'm cutting my leaves a little smaller today, not only because I want the shredded look, but also because it creates a larger surface area for the dressing, adding more flavour to the leaves. Lightly dressing your salad greens before putting them in evenly disperses the flavour of the vinaigrette or condiment. I'm going to add some of the soaked red onions along the bread, but first we need to dry them to soak up the excess moisture we don't need in our sub. Now let's add our Kalamata olives. I'm going to chop them a bit smaller so the flavour is more widely dispersed. They'll add a delicious salty component to this sub. Don't forget to add some seasoning too. A grind of salt and pepper will finish this off perfectly. Tip number 5. Wrap your sub. Even if you're planning on eating your sub straight away, wrap it for a few minutes to compress it and allow the flavours to mingle a little. Use a long knife or palette knife to help press down on the filling to close the sandwich. Then wrap it up. I'm using some baking paper. I find the best way is to bring the ends of the paper together and then fold them over a couple of times to secure it in place. When you get to the sides, fold them in and then tuck the tailpiece underneath. For presentation purposes today, I'm going to tie mine in 4 places and then cut through the bread and the paper, creating 4 portions. Doesn't that look fantastic? I love the colours and the layering in there. I hope you're feeling inspired to experiment with your own ideas, develop your own delicious sub sandwich and perfect your layering technique. If you're wanting some more sandwich inspiration that's not as long as a submarine, check out this video on making perfect filled rolls. They're even tastier than they look. See you over there.